question I'm going to ask you 4 quick questions. What brought you out to the polls today, in your own words? What brought you out to the polls today?
Well, I'm a mama of twins, and I know that things need to change. My vote matters. It matters not only for me, but for them, their future. You know, the things that are happening right now, I don't believe, they're fair. And I got babies to worry about, so.
For the last 4 years, even though I'm not really into politics, I see how things have been going, and I feel like it was my duty as a citizen to really participate.
Listening.
Hey man, I'm gonna be honest, man. I feel like my president, I represent him. Even if I was a Democrat, used to be a Democrat, I do support my president because he's not racist. I know it's contrary to popular belief, but
So are you expecting any particular policies or laws to be changed or at least championed by the people you voted for today?
I'm hoping that more local issues will be addressed.
They're not good at, they're not known for keeping their word. You know what I'm saying? They've always been who they are. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like somebody that trust, when people use trust, they use it wrong.
Coming out of this, what type of policies or laws or legal changes are you hoping to see?
I simply expect politicians to represent the people and the people's interests, not the interests of lobbyists or commercial interests. That's all I want from them.
Well, number one thing, I feel like us as black and brown people in America, the number one thing that we're concerned about is it being fair, giving us a chance to be able to succeed just like anybody else in America, giving us a chance to be able to live where we want, go to the schools that we want, and not be excluded because of who we are. We've lost so many people during this pandemic, and it's only affected black and brown people, to be completely honest. So for any politician that's in office, you need to make sure that you are giving black and brown people those reparations that they deserve, that we have waited so long for, that are so well overdue.
So I voted at every election since I've been 18.
What do you think about the idea of trying to vote out an institution that has been in play in this country since its founding?
I don't think it's possible to vote it out. I think it's possible to mandate certain things in order to eliminate certain aspects of it. But as far as eliminating it completely, I think that is at the core of our nation. And I don't think that we're ever going to get rid of it completely.
Okay, what is going on, people? Oh, I see you, Ernest. I see you, Stedman. I see you, Gerard. Y'all live over there? Y'all can hear us? Can you hear me?
Yeah, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. Well, listen, I want y'all to introduce yourselves. Everybody kind of end up knowing who I am. So, Ernest, just let the people who you know and where you at, man. Come on in. Where Ernest at? Ernest, mute. Come on, Ernest.
What's going on, y'all? This Ernest. I'm out here in Lansing, Michigan. Just giving you guys, my insights on what's going on politically. Here to do the work with the Freedman Collective. I'm hoping you guys join this dialogue, and appreciate the content we're putting out today.
Yeah, Stedman.
Hey, it's Stedman in Detroit. Here for another episode. Hopefully it's informative and enlightening for everybody. Trying to make politics approachable for the people who don't typically consume politics. So hopefully you enjoy.
Go Army, man. What's up, Army?
Hey, what's up, man? What's going on, brother? Hey, guys, my drop. Ben Lamont here in Detroit area, east side, originally from downriver Detroit and the west side. I'm just here, man, just to share my my views, being a veteran, serving the country for 23 years, man. Tomorrow's Veterans Day. That's why I'm wearing the Army shirt. But I was glad we hit the streets and we talk to people, man. So give it up to everybody for participating, and I'm glad to be here.
And I'm Darvell. I think my experience lends from bouncing a little bit around the country and being a millennial that's trapped in the chasm between, trying to understand whether or not I can make a difference and the demand to make a difference and the political education that's required to make that difference. So I am currently living in the Detroit suburbs. And I originally am from Ohio by way of Kentucky, Tennessee, Mississippi, and so on and so forth. So we're here today, second episode of the Freedman Collective. I think at the top of the show, you guys were able to see a little super cut that Ernest put together. It was pretty flexing of what we actually went out and did on Election Day a week ago. We went out and we talked to the people in the city, and we got some real opinions, some real input, and some real work from the ground. We got a better understanding. And it was surprising though, Stedman. It wasn't a lot of people out there from what I could tell though. Like, it looked light.
Yeah, no, I mean, at least at my polling location specifically, I didn't notice an increase of people. I voted earlier that day, and it was like dead. And it wasn't like it was a increase of people inside. I think there actually might have been even more actual polling stations inside, and they were spaced apart adequately. But it was like nobody in there. And saw a couple people drop off ballots, but like I didn't see anything. Maybe people voted extremely early, and I'm just late. But I mean, it looked as busy as normal. As far as I've been voting here. So
Did you mail in a ballot, Gerard?
Yeah. So I didn't mail my ballot in. I actually took my ballot down to the elections office, the Board of Elections office for the city of Detroit, and actually the lady that's over the election in Detroit, Miss Winfrey, she actually accepted my ballot. So I had no idea because last year, actually earlier this year, the election that happened on the 10th, I had my ballot. I turned in my ballot, and again, I didn't go to the mail, and I directly put it in a box that was for someone that was standing outside that worked in the election office for the city. And there's an online website that you can get that you can check to see if was it sent out, a ballot sent out, and was it received. Well, when I went to that online, I think it's called Ballot Tracks. And when I went online, it shows that I received a March 10th ballot, but it didn't show that I turned it in. Now, I know I physically went down to the office and I turned it in. So this time I said, I'm going to actually walk in. So instead of, handing it to the employee that's outside is collecting the ballots, because they have an area where in front of the office, it's on Grand Boulevard. You could actually drive up and just hand it, or walk up and hand it. But I actually went inside of the office to turn in my ballot. And is it Candace Winfrey? I can't remember, but I know her last name is Winfrey. Yeah, she actually. So I was going in and turn in my ballot, not expecting her, to accept my ballot. And so I told her about what happened in March 10th, and she was like, "Oh, it was it was a third party system. It was overloaded, but your ballot was counted." I said, "Well, will it ever be updated?" She never gave me any clarification on that. They called me within 2 days. I haven't actually went to Ballot Tracks to see if it came in, but I got a phone call saying that my ballot was received after 2 days after I turned it in 2 days, and allegedly that my ballot was part of one of the ones that were being counted down at Cobo.
Oh,
or the TCF Center, right? Because that's where all mail-in ballots were counted, and that's where all that issue. So my ballot was down there somewhere, I guess.
They was down there. They was about to scrap it out in front of TCF.
Yeah, right.
Was it like that in Lansing though, Ernest? Like, what was the vibe in Lansing? You dropped it off, or you mailed it?
Yeah, definitely. Me and Rose, we dropped off our ballots, so it was, quick and painless. Really, we had the drop-off boxes, so we just really dumped that in there and got out. I think when we drove around on Election Day coming back from Detroit, it was really still light outside in traffic. So I want to say that it looked like majority of Lansing may have voted by mail just based on what I seen, because we have like a polling place right down the street from our house. So
okay. Yeah. All right. But I mean, even despite that, they said it was record numbers for Detroit and for the nation. Yeah. And it seems like, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't like both the Republican candidate get more votes than any Republican ever, and then the Democratic candidate got more votes than at least Obama?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't see Obama numbers out there in the streets, but if most of our people voted by mail.
Remember, there was early voting as well. So the
Yeah.
city had 22 voting locations throughout the city, at least here in Detroit. I know of that for sure. It was 22 early voting locations, and that was by like at least 2 weeks. So you take that into impact that there was early voting going on, and also for the first time you had same day registration, same day voting. So this was the first election where that was impacted, where, so you add all those things combined, that's where you probably had a high turnout, if we were to trust what they tell us, we can.
I mean, yeah, that's probably the biggest thing for me, because like Joe Biden had record like lows for enthusiasm. And I mean, historically, you don't really get people to go out to vote because they're afraid of the opposing candidate. Like that's not typically the greatest. I mean, look what happened in 2016. I mean, maybe people just thought 2016 was a foregone conclusion for Hillary, so everybody just said, "I'm not going," and everybody stayed home, whatever. But like, I mean, I don't know, man. Kamala Harris dropped out of the race before her home state for president because she had like bad numbers, especially with black people. And then Joe Biden, like, he has a lot of support with older black people, but like, I think 30 and under is like trash. So I just feel like, I'm not gonna say nobody was cooking the books, but I mean, I'd like to get some hard numbers because who was enthusiastic to vote for Joe Biden?
I mean, well, if anything, Stedman, what is definitely proven, and there's been articles written all across the country, is that the pollsters have gotten, are trash. They've gotten it wrong.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
percentage.
And it really tells you that a lot of this stuff is hype. You know what I'm saying? And never trust about poll that says someone's this and someone's that, because they overly underperformed in 2 election cycles back to back. So that really puts a lot of question in polls, the polling and that whole profession and field.
So, and I feel like, I was gonna say, I feel like that goes back to enthusiasm, because like, I mean, and at the point that the polls are so off from reality, it makes you wonder if they're trying to steer the election in a way instead of trying to, you know what I'm saying? Because like,
that's the purpose of it. If you think that your candidate isn't going to win because they're telling you he can't win, you might do something different.
Yeah,
right. Because like, I mean, for the last 4 years, all you heard about is Trump is a Russian puppet and he's an idiot and he's the most racist person ever to be president. And then you still barely beat him. Like in some of these places, it's less than a point. It's less than a percentage point. Yeah. And so it's just like, what does that say about you guys?
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? As a party,
there was no blue wave. It was predicted that a blue wave was coming. They actually thought Texas was up for grabs. They actually thought like certain states were up for grabs, and it turned out not to be. They actually lost 10 seats in the House.
Yep.
Lost.
Which to me doesn't correspond to having overwhelming support for your candidate. I mean, even like I lived in Georgia when Obama was running, and like I didn't see that in Georgia. Like they didn't flip. Obama couldn't flip Georgia blue. How did did suburban Atlantans really come out and flip and vote for Joe Biden? And you have in the runoff, you got 2 Republican members of the Senate running again, and then you got a complete like top to bottom Republican state legislature. Is that really what happened? You know what I'm saying? Like it's really inconceivable to me.
All right, so let's back up. We got to come back up to the high level for the people who are watching. We're right there with it. We understand what happened. So basically, we've seen the screenshots you sent, Gerard, from that site showed about a 5 million vote difference, popular vote between the candidates, right? But of course, it was a blowover when it came to electoral votes, right? So. With all that being said, we asked people on the streets, like, hey, so what drove you out here to come to the polls, right? Like, we know that folks were voting by mail and doing all this stuff. And we're presuming from the media's standpoint that all these people were coming out to vote for Biden, right? But we found something a little different when we hit the streets, didn't we? We found a little different of reasons that people came out to vote, and it wasn't just because of Trump, right? So we did do some interviews, and so we're gonna share those real quick and let people see what it is for themselves. So let's go ahead and roll the first set, the first question. The first question that we asked people was, what drove you to the polls? And so we're gonna go ahead and share that right now and let our viewers really take their own synopsis of what happened when people went out in Detroit.
What brought you out to the polls today, in your own words? What brought you out to the polls today?
Well, I'm a mama of twins, and I know that things need to change. My vote matters. It matters not only for me, but for them, their future. You know, the things that are happening right now, I don't believe, they're fair. And I got babies to worry about.
Definitely to vote and try and make some changes at the both state as well as federal level.
I feel like it was my right to come vote, my God-given right to come voice my voice and not believe it's meaningless. So I just thank God for the opportunity to do it, man.
When I was 11 years old, there was a woman from Detroit named Viola Liuzza. She went down south and she was murdered. That had an impact on me all of my adult life, because I imagine, what would happen if my mother went somewhere for somebody else and lost her life. So I voted at every election since I've been 18.
Basically because of the urgent, the extreme need to remove the president that is presently in office.
Money. Okay, proposal in, tears down the blights. I'm a contractor. And if they do what needs to be done by this proposal in, it'll open up my business greater, because more people will buy these blighted homes. Our hoods will become a community, because we all know that the government doesn't invest in hoods. They only invest in communities.
COVID-19. My grandfather died of COVID-19. I believe Trump put it out there. So that's one of the things that, brought me out here today.
For the last 4 years, even though I'm not really into politics, I see how things have been going, and I feel like it was my duty as a citizen to really participate.
Was there anything specifically that you've seen going in an unfavorable manner?
Well, obviously the stuff with the president, how he's been handling stuff in an unprofessional manner, really. Yeah.
Well, what do you guys think? It was all over the place, but Trump was a pattern.
Yeah, we saw that.
I think that's more so consistent with the media, and so like I think with the last interviewer, how she said, with how things have been going, and then you asked how have things been going. She said that he has been unprofessional or handling things in an unprofessional manner. And I could say we all know how Trump's personality is. So, the way he does handle things is like a kid in a sort of way. And at the same time, I think that probably discouraged Black voters, or it just may have allowed them to believe more into that media narrative of look at who's in charge, a guy that's a baby, with folks, with this being a serious time, I think that just was more so impactful.
It was pretty easy for people to come out.
Yeah, what out of all of those answers, I watched every interview, but definitely the one that struck me was the older gentleman that brought up, the lady that went, the Detroit woman that went down south, and she lost her life, and he was like, that happened to him when he was 11 years old. And I've heard of this. I mean, I only became aware of that story maybe in the last 3 or 4 years, I believe, and the fact that he's been, voting ever since because of that. But that was pretty impactful, or what have you, at least for me, to note that someone personally, was moved by her sacrifice to do so. I think that really, and in the fact that he was older, I think that has a lot, resonates with a lot of people of that age.
It brings a level of conviction that can supersede any political objective, right?
Right.
Strong, I think like a strong historical connection. But I think out of all of those folks, the guy that did it for me was the first boomer when he said that, he's looking for changes at the state or local or even federal level. So that just shows you that all of those people, it was one who kind of had the idea that we're kind of looking for with this channel or, in this show going forward. So.
Yeah, he had a pretty concretized objective focus, right? He said he gave 2 levels, which is very important because municipal level, which is city or county, all the way up, state level, those are the 2 that hit you the hardest real quick because a lot of times the crimes you commit, not crimes you're committing. The crimes that people are being convicted for are more than likely going to fall within state or municipal range. Right? Yeah, so in that regard, you want to press those politicians to reduce minimum sentencing or get rid of it altogether. You want to increase the diversion and other programs that are available to allow people to avoid jail time altogether. And we're just talking about, criminal justice reform. We shouldn't even be having to talk about criminal justice reform because we shouldn't be getting wrapped up into the criminal justice system anyway in the rates that we are. So it's just one thing that can be done, but it has to be done on a local level, which kind of plays more to what validity or what importance does our presidential candidate bring? Well, the presidential candidate sets a tone, and they also kind of direct the mass movement of Congress outside of the demand of the people, which is important about marches and being civically active, which we all are very aware of. But any comment on what you've seen there, Stedman?
I mean, it was really a lot of different answers. I had never heard of Viola Liuzzo before, so I just looked her up, and it's a crazy story. So I'm looking at it, how she got killed or whatever, and the guy who killed her was actually he didn't kill her, but he was an FBI informant with the KKK members who killed her, right? And so the FBI was trying to distance the organization from having employed this guy as an informant, who was an informant in the Klan. And so they said that the woman was a heroin addict, a member of the Communist Party, and that she had abandoned her 5 children to have sexual relationships with African Americans involved in the civil rights movement. So that's just like, I mean, if you ever needed to know what your government is all about, I feel like, so that's why I'm kind of just been in the background, like reading over this, because at every step of really for the freedom struggle, white people involved in this freedom struggle, black people, the U.S. government has been an impediment at every step of the way, even up to now. I mean, and so it's crazy. Like I always say, whenever you think it can't get any worse, whenever you think, wow, this country they have done some shitty stuff, and like they couldn't have done anything shittier.
Can't go lower.
You just read something, you be like, wow, I was wrong. I was wrong. You know what I'm saying? Like I was totally wrong.
Drop it low.
And so
anything worse is that we just don't know half of it.
Yeah. But I'm saying like just the degree of it, because I mean we've heard about what they did to Malcolm X, and we heard what they did to King, and we know about COINTELPRO and stuff. But like even this white from Pennsylvania, came from Detroit, Michigan, housewife who just heard Martin Luther King saying, we should have justice and whatever. She went down to Selma to march, right? Turn the other cheek. And then she gets killed, from racists. And rather than the FBI saying, this is how we were able to even, find out about this because he was our informant, or she was a heroin addict and she was having sex with black people in the summer. Like that's how is that even? That's part of the crime she committed. The heroin, the sex with black men, and abandoning her children. Like, come on, man.
Right, yeah. That was the
you know what I'm saying?
Pathetic figure. We wide open for that black. You know what?
Yeah, it's just like, dog, man. She was just trying, and a communist. Like,
and a communist, and she's a pinky.
You know what I'm saying?
She's a pinky or red.
And then you think about how this last 4 years. How they've just been, I mean, it's been a fair game to just be xenophobic to Russian people, right? Oh, you're a Russian, you're working with the Russians, they're Russian, like, and it's just like a blast from the past. Like, no, you get what you're saying? Yeah. Russians are people. They're a group of people. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? It's not, you don't, they're not saying the Russian government. They're not saying the Russian state. They're saying Russians. Russian, regular, just Russian people living their life. You know what I'm saying? I'm supposed to act like what? You know what I mean? This stuff, it never stops. The cycle just keeps, those who don't learn history are doomed to repeat it. We just continue to move further away from history and then fall right back into the same traps. That's what we do as a nation. It's just collective amnesia.
That's really interesting. So, okay, so let's hop to question 2 that we asked the people, right? So the next question 2 that we asked people on the beat in Detroit at the polling stations was, hey, tell me what policies, what specific actions, what specific tangible transformations or legal challenges or precedents are you looking to have set, created, or moved, or overturned, or whatever? What specific things are you looking for from these politicians this go around? So we asked the people in Detroit this, and here was their.
So are you expecting any particular policies or laws to be changed or at least championed by the people you voted for today?
I'm hoping that more local issues will be addressed with the people that I voted for today. I think that most things occur at the local level more so than at the federal level, and that if you vote in the right people at the local level, then you can get those policies changed.
Well, number one thing, I feel like us as Black and brown people in America, the number one thing that we're concerned about is it being fair, giving us a chance to be able to succeed just like anybody else in America, giving us a chance to be able to live where we want, go to the schools that we want, you know what I'm saying, and not be excluded because of who we are.
I would like to see a lot more fairness, with the First Amendment. I feel like recently I've seen a lot of unfairness with people's opinions, people being censored or heavily favored on one side versus the other. And also I've seen people worried about their Second Amendment right to protect themselves in case someone comes against their family or themselves. So
I simply expect politicians to represent the people and the people's interests, not the interests of lobbyists or commercial interests. That's all I want from them.
What I expect is for them to buckle their seatbelts and be ready for the mass public that has been totally outraged to the George Floyd assassination, to not just be willing to sit back and see what they're going to come up with and do that is supposed to pacify and placate us, the voting public. They better get ready for a nonstop, ongoing mass movement of protests.
Something has to be done about this, the police reform.
I want to say the open carry laws.
Oh, okay.
I don't quite get it or understand it.
Okay.
So I think that should be changed and be more specific.
It's a little too permissive for you?
Yeah.
All right, there was a lot there. I done made a bunch of notes. So I'm just gonna say that the first guy came back again with the specificity.
He was on point, man. He was on point. Hey, I just want to say, next time we gotta make sure people throw out their gum when they doing interviews, man.
Oh my bad. Oh, that's me.
Oh,
I didn't.
God, dude.
Girl, right? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
We can't do that. Was annoying as hell. But anyway. Yeah, man. I think the first gentleman for sure. He brought it, man, with policies. And then the other gentleman that I talked about as well. He talked about, hey, they got to represent the people and not be for corporate interests, right? But I'm more than likely he voted for Biden, and he represents all of that. So that's the conundrum.
The dilemma.
That's the dilemma, right?
Yeah.
But he was right on point. And then the one gentleman I talked about being ready to be braced. Basically, hey, we're gonna have some kickback on the street about these killings or whatever. But then you elected a person that helped that environment to foster be where it is. So this cognitive dissonance is just crazy.
It's interesting. We will get to that as far as that particular gentleman, and he makes more comments along that line that kind of fill out his story of what he said. It's going to be very interesting, but he hit it right on the nose. Like, they need to be ready. But you guys think that the momentum we've seen over the summer is going to continue when the heat comes back on in 2021?
Not a chance.
So
why, Gabby? Why not?
Either the media is going to stop talking about it, or Joe Biden and the police state that we live in is going to be cracking heads. I mean, that's, like I went to Ferguson. Well, I didn't go to Ferguson. I went to St. Louis around the time of Mike Brown. And like there were tanks in the streets, right? Why don't you see this happening now? Right? What's stopping Trump from having tanks out in the street or having different governors call the National Guard? Because right now it's politically advantageous for Democrats to expose Trump's unsavoriness with race. You see what I'm saying? But Obama at Standing Rock with the DAPL, right? What did he say when they were saying, yo, dog, they're sicking dogs on these Native Americans. This is their tribal land. This is land that they were agreed that they will be able to use, for ceremonies or whatever. And they're protesting because this oil pipeline, which I believe has already burst 5 times, it's spilled 3 to 5 times already, is going to destroy this land. It's going to contaminate this land. They're sicking dogs on them. They got water hoses on them. You know what I'm saying? Like, what do you? He said, we'll just see how this plays out. So, I mean, like, this didn't just start with Trump, right?
Right.
But the media worked in conjunction with a favorable administration, because we saw that happen with Bush too. So media works in concert with the administration, with the power, to make sure that they cover up any unsavory issues. And Trump just wasn't in that club. Now, for me, we talked about even the guy, he talked about censorship.
Yeah, he did.
And so this gets to be a situation where, looking at censorship, a lot of people are kind of like, no, you should censor bad speech or whatever. Like, my mother taught me growing up that sticks and stones break your bones and words don't hurt. So yeah, you can call me the N-word. Like, if that's what you got to do, do whatever you got to do. But as long as my life isn't changing, I'm fine with it.
That's what dude gets into. Again, you hitting the nail on the head. The guy's going to get into that in the later interview that we're going to play. And it's interesting, though, just to be clear, we're not trying to say that Trump doesn't have his own agenda to manipulate the media. He doesn't have a lot of media on his side except Fox.
Yeah.
But we're
and I mean, as of late, that is that is leaving.
And nobody here is trying to support Trump. What we're focusing on is we're focusing on the lack of engagement of our political base to hold the Democrats responsible, so we could have real tangibles come out of this election and not just never Trump. Because this was pivotal. We came out of a summer of protests that went over for 100 days. And so how can you not take that momentum and demand from the presidential candidate that's running with a multiracial...
Wait. What you just said, we had over 100 days of protests unseen in American history, right? Against police violence. Against police violence. Defund the police, right? Retrain them. Get rid of them. We don't want them. And what does he do? What does Crime Bill Joe do?
I want to give him more funding.
He puts the top cop as his VP. What more do people need to see?
Yeah.
They don't care, though. That's the problem.
They don't care, man. They don't care, dude. They say, what I've gotten, man, from people, hey, the black people do crimes. If you did the crime, literally, I had a discussion with one of my cousins that are from, through marriage, right?
Yeah.
And he's a firefighter, man, out of Grand Rapids. And he said, hey, he told me, he said, hey, man, because I'm obviously younger than him. He said, you don't remember how it was when YBI was running the streets. You don't remember when they told us that, hey, if you live past 25, you know what I'm saying? That was something special. You feeling, what you call that survivor's guilt if you did. I mean, he made out the litany, man. He said, you didn't see, crack and what it did and blah, 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 and so on and so forth. I was like, I mean, I know about it. Like I didn't know. I mean, I was around in the 80s. Right. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I was a kid, but, I remember it, it wasn't that long ago or what have you. But no, I wasn't a teenager during the 80s. But hell, I grew up in the 90s. You know what I'm saying? So, we dealt with that. But at the same time, it was like, basically, no, it doesn't matter. It didn't matter what, he changed. It didn't matter. black people were calling for, even though that's history to contrary to that. It's that's the retort that you get.
So to touch on that, two things just to clear the record, because there are people who have said that Biden's apologized. Here's the thing: Biden's record is substantial enough, and so is Kamala's, and they're in a position that's clear enough that even though he has said, what they do is they say, well, he admitted that it was wrong. Clinton done the same thing. When Hillary was right, he had a similar type of language that he used to kind of say that what I was involved in the past was bad. But he didn't come out and say, I'm sorry, I repent, I apologize, I wish I hadn't done it. He has none of that type of level of remorse. And on top of that, here's the thing. Even if he doesn't have to say that much, and some people believe all he's got to say is just a little bit and, we'll let it go. Even if he doesn't say all that, how do you deal with when you do something wrong to someone and you truly are apologetic about it? What do you do? You try to do something to make it right. You try to do something to support their repair, the rebuilding of what you destroyed. Biden has absolutely no intention of doing that because he's been asked and he said no, and he's diverted away from the question. Kamala has imperatively said, I will not do anything for the people who I punish through the rules and policies I upheld or I defended, and I will not do anything as a VP for the Black community specifically. And so with those two things, that tells you that even though they're well aware of the damage that their records have done to the community that is underpinning the Democratic campaign, that's not their concern because they know the vote is locked in. And that's kind of the problem. We can't have a credible threat if the vote is locked in based on never Trump or based on anything else. That's why we lost in this election. Let me set up though. Ernest, what you got before we go to the next interviews?
I think you guys were hitting it all on the head. I think the one thing with Kamala is that Kamala and Joe Biden are on their Twitter accounts and then other social medias or speeches, they're saying that they owe the Black community. So we'll see if that means if they owe us anything specific or if it results in anything tangible that we can actually use or benefit us in the future. But if it's another all lives matter policy or people of color policy, really, there's nothing we can do with that.
Actually, what's interesting that was kind of offbeat was my man's in the interview. The third guy, a red jacket guy, he talked about the First and Second Amendments.
Yeah, he was that. I think that's the media sway again, because even the last girl, she said the open carry thing, and really the media has kind of downplayed any mass shootings or things like that. We haven't seen anything recently in the news besides Trump. And so, Trump and COVID, that's been the headline for this whole 2020, maybe 2019.
Yeah, this is true. I get what you're coming from with the concern about open carry, but it's not. See, this is the thing about laws and policies that's really critical. Nothing is a threat to you until the person wants to be a threat to you. So the fact that they can have open carry has never been a threat until the person who you see carrying it is potentially a threat, because having a gun is not necessarily going to result in a death, but the person who wants to harm you having a gun could result in a death. So it has to do with the person more than the law, but the law is just an enabler for them.
Here's even more twist to it. If your black ass try to do, you try to go out there and open carry, you'll see how much your Second Amendment is going to really work for you. Even though I'm a strong proponent for the Second Amendment, and I believe we should be able to do all we citizens. We should be able to. But I'm telling you,
realistic.
You got to be realistic. That's the real deal. If I can't, it's legal for me to take an AR-15 and walk around. But my reaction is going to be completely different than the guy in the militia, that shows up at a Black Lives Matter protest.
Right.
Completely different. And that's the reality of it. But at the same time, I feel that we as Black people should never embrace things talking about taking away weapons, because when that gun reform has never been good for Black people at all. That's
how California took away their guns. Huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Open carry. It was open carry in California when the Black Panthers showed up at the state capitol. They took the open carry.
They got rid of that day.
Right.
I mean, that shows how you get real bipartisan support. Have black people doing it.
That was another day. One that a Dave
clean it up
Chappelle
quick.
joke. One that a Dave Chappelle joke. He said, "Go get registered for their guns."
Register for voting and guns. So we're about to roll into the third series of interviews, or the third series of answers, right? So what was the third question? The third question was, what should political candidates and other people in legislative positions do about the racial wealth disparity? And so, to be clear, what I quoted to the people before they answered the question is that the racial wealth equity, or the holding of the Black community of the national wealth overall in the U.S. is less than 2%. That's based off of actual studies from 2016 that were published and also annotated by Antonio Moore in some of his publications. So what we're going to do is just watch and see what people's reactions and their opinion is on what politicians that were just elected, as well as people who will remain in office going forward, should be doing about the racial wealth disparity for the Black community.
I would say probably redistributing the wealth, as far as in programs, as far as in services, as far as in helping people increase their wealth, whether it be with programs, whether it be with education or something of that sort.
Well, number one is police reform. We got too many police officers that have actually went to war and seen crazy things, and we have them serving the streets of regular people that have not seen anything like that. You know what I'm saying? So that's number one. If you're going to have somebody out here protecting us, make sure that they're protecting us in the correct way.
Well, I couldn't agree with that, because it's a lot of Black millionaires now, you know. Maybe that's like a form of reparations from our slavery time, but it's a lot of Black millionaires today. So I'm not sure if that's necessarily true. I got to look into that. I'm not trying to say anything against you, but I want to look into that more. But just the fact that it's a lot of poverty with the African-American community, I have to say, man, it's due to policies, and it's also due to the choices that we make as well. Sometimes people are disenfranchised, but sometimes it's up to that person to get up and go.
You know, I don't think that they're going to do very much about it. It's up to the people. Okay, it's up to us to buy Nike stock instead of Nike shoes. Okay, to invest in the infrastructure of America and build our communities up. Okay, we don't do that. We go everywhere but where we live and spend our money. You know, Black people spend $1 trillion a year. Okay, 10% of that would make everybody in America that's Black wealthy if we spent the money amongst ourselves.
I expect them to stop perpetrating and precipitating around a whole bunch of good sounding conversation and put some laws on the books that we don't have to look back and worry about 3 years, 5 years, 10 years from now, some other individuals that don't have our betterment at heart to be trying to shoot back up under a Supreme Court or any other court or legislative body to take it back from us.
I don't want to see them do anything other than what they're doing, because I don't expect anything out of them other than what they've been doing for the last 50 years. Neither party never meant us any good at all, or else we wouldn't be standing here talking about police reform, would we? Or the wealth gap, would we?
Make it right. Make it equal. That's it. That's all.
I'm not sure about ideas off the top of my head, but I do think there needs to be more of a being hands-on in the community, because I feel like they do always kind of fish for Black votes, if you will, without like really listening to the Black people. So.
All right.
That was a good one.
Listen, my man who got me had to be Proposal N, who said he don't want to see nothing other than what they already been doing.
But they're going to vote anyway for Biden and all the Democrats.
But I mean, that's the part about it. I can understand what he's saying, but at the same time, I feel like, you know, that just shows you the level of mistrust we have for our own government. Kind of going back to what I said, like every time, especially Black people, but anytime you've had a movement for equality, liberation, workers' rights, whatever, like human rights, whatever, the government has been the biggest impediment. And so I can see how you could say, well, I'll vote so it don't get worse, but I don't expect you to do anything to make it better. And I mean, as much as I say we need to change that mentality, there also needs to be some action that persuades people to believe that a change is possible. Because I mean, what did he say? If they had done anything in the last 50 years, you would be out here police reform. If they had done anything in the last 50 years, you wouldn't be electing a guy who put the police on the fast track that they're at right now for president because you're afraid of the guy who's already president winning again. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's why that lesser of two evils, it doesn't work because you're going to vote. All they got to do is give you the less evil. And eventually, if they can give you a greater evil than the evil they wanted to do before, they'll make you vote for the last evil to get rid of the new evil. Just like, look at it, they talk about Mitt Romney being a cabinet member or John Kasich. No, I remember in 2012, they told us Mitt Romney was the worst guy in America.
Hey, Joe Biden himself. Listen, bro. Joe Biden himself made the statement that, hey, Romney's gonna put y'all black folks back.
He's gonna put y'all back in chains.
And you want to put on your cabinet?
That's how much bullshit that shit is, man.
He a real politician. He a real politician.
Straight politician, man. That's always
Joe Biden don't even know who his sister and his wife is, but he know how to play the game. You know what I'm saying? He can't remember that his daughter, his granddaughter, is not his dead son, but he know how to play this game. Come on, dog.
I don't know. So what was I gonna say? Proposal in, guy. We understand that. You know, we understand that viewpoint. But it reminded me, what you just said reminded me of our last episode where we had the skit from, was it Chris Rock?
Yeah.
Dave
Chappelle. I'm sorry. But that reminds me, you know, of that same basic formula that he utilized, that pimp utilized, that was given to him, right? You create something worse so that you can raise the water level, and somebody will accept something just less than that. So I will say the other thing. I know this was not on purpose. Again, this is not supporting Trump or Republicans. It's just a real, like, it's a big frustration with the establishment, how the system is operating, and especially with the Democrats. And here the biggest frustration is how our people are not willing to hold folks accountable because they don't want to be ostracized. They don't want to be marginalized. They don't want to be otherwise challenged when they know it's wrong. And I think that a lot of people we talk to know that what has been going on politically is wrong, and they're willing to go out in the streets and march. But unfortunately, the people who organize the marches aren't putting a specific ask into tangible strategy to drive real change.
Ain't no policy behind that energy.
They're putting a tangible ask out, but that ask is just for them.
Yeah,
it's just for them, just so they can get a book deal or a TV show, or you know what I'm saying. Look at the Black Lives Matter lady.
No collective.
A book deal. One of them got like a speaking gig as some kind of in-resident speaker at some place. The other one's working on like a executive producer or something. So they're getting stuff worked out. They're just leveraging they're leveraging this movement they create, or this, you know, popular movement in society for their own benefit. Look at D-Ray, man. I mean, you got a guy who's a protester, and he's known for a branded vest. That's it. Like, that don't make sense. You shouldn't have that kind of, you know, that kind of imagery where, like, even with the Panther, where you could say they was wearing leather jackets or whatever, and they was wearing all black.
Yeah, but
but it wasn't branded.
It wasn't.
You got a Patagonia vest on, cuz. What's up?
Hey,
like, what are you doing?
What you guys think about the two who covered basically the principles of bootstrappism? You know, we had one guy say we got a bunch of black millionaires, maybe that's reparations for our people.
Right,
right. The other guy who said black people as a large spends $1 trillion a year investing in our own communities, not understanding that the policies that we face is what, you know, minimize our communities or cause that deterioration.
It's a logical disconnect. Well, at least the one. So going to the two brothers you're talking about, at least the one brother that stated he was consistent, because one, he denied. He denied. He said, "I don't know. I don't think that's
he stood
true.
on the square. Yeah,
right. I don't think that's true." And then his evidence was because there's black millionaires, right? And maybe that's not reparations, right? You know,
and he said policies and the the people. So he was saying, we got to hold some of our people accountable that they have to do the right things. But then there are also some policies that are impacting.
Yeah, it was accessibility politics. It was the blame on the people for the condition of why they're at. And look, there are some people that are millionaires. Therefore, he didn't believe in that statistic, right? Well, it just goes to show that people don't have a real good fundamental understanding of the wealth condition, right? Or where we're at.
Or how do people get there?
Right. And then the older gentleman, again, now this was a disconnect because he said, "Oh yes, he was aware the black people only had 2%." You know what I mean? But then he stated that there was, he gave a bootstrap a remedy. Now, if we don't have the wealth, then how can we, spend our little wealth that we have to establish wealth? Again, it goes back to people don't understand how economics really fundamentally work. That trillion is living here.
Well, even that measure, like saying, because they say, well, black people have $1 trillion of buying power or purchasing power, but that's a measure of consumption or expected consumption. That's not a measure of savings.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That whole metric, I looked it up before, but it was like something that the government used when they were trying to determine like the quality of life for workers, so they could try to avoid like strikes or any kind of worker uprising. But that's not really like a scientific measure of anything. It's not a measure of retained wealth. It's how much you spend on stuff. So let's say you have $1 trillion of wealth. I mean, what do you have as far as disposable income that you could say you could apply to something else? What are you spending your money on every month
that just gonna make
that you could divert to something else and still be good?
And
That's the strategy that they use when they start that is to buy black. Again, listen, people, listen very clearly to what we're saying. We're not shooting down supporting black businesses. We're not shooting down buying black. What we're talking about is the reality of why buying black has not saved this community, because it doesn't work, because the math cannot calculate with the reality of fact that look at the black businesses in Detroit. So what he did, that gentleman, he said something that was very interesting. He went from we need to do this to this. And then at the end, and I don't know if I kept that in the interview, I'm not going to say he spoke on the forces that work against black businesses, because I asked this follow-up question, right? I asked, well, are you saying that black businesses in Detroit? I said all black businesses, but what I meant to say is black businesses that have failed didn't try well enough. And do you understand that black businesses that were once thriving, even in the middle of a thriving economy, had to close? And how did that happen? I mean, when growth was happening all around them, when new other shops were happening all up and down the streets, we seen black businesses close. And that's because the competitive landscape requires a level of investment and a level of liquidity and funding that's available to keep up with the Joneses, essentially. You have to be able your Walmart, when you talk about your corner stores, your bodegas, your grocery stores. But when you talk about bars like Center Park Bar, like Detroit Seafood Market Restaurant, when you talk about like establishments like that, where they're in an area where all of a sudden people with gobs of money, comparatively speaking, show up. And they're still in a space where maybe even the property value is going up, and then the property owner starts jacking up the rent rate. I'm not saying that's what happened to those specific restaurants, but what I'm saying is that it takes more than black people to sustain something that can grow, because what we're trying to do is the Robin Hood, right? We're trying to take from every other space and bring into our own, because we just said that $1 trillion spending thing is garbage. So we need more money coming in than we have going out in order to raise our wealth positionality. That means we got to get wealth from outside of our own group. And so that means you need customers who aren't just us coming into your store. And so that means you have to be competitive with where they would go otherwise. And so all that requires investment. Let me shut up.
Yeah, I mean,
that's true. I mean, that's true.
Yeah,
we was talking about it when we was out there at the polling locations. We was saying even if we wanted to, shop with black business, sometimes we're paying premium on products that we could get easily for a discount. And that's because of the competition that they face, and however they have to go about securing their products and inventory while still making a profit. So,
and what do black people who have money do? They go and they buy it where they can get it for the cheapest. Let me shut up. Let me go on.
Right.
Well, I mean, and you would need to exercise a level of like collectivism in black businesses, where if you have a boutique, you and every other woman who has a boutique, or every individual with a boutique, you need to worry about trying to buy in bulk. You see what I'm saying? Too many of our black businesses try to operate as standalone businesses, barbershops, grocery stores, tailors, boutiques. Like, if you worked as a collective, we'd be having a different conversation, because then you're buying in such large quantities that the cost is offset by the amounts that you're purchasing.
Well, here's the thing with that, as we seen in all of these industries, the Walmarts, the Home Depots, or whatever. Like, in order to do that, you have to have less competition. That's why they merge and buy up other competitors, right? And that's the thing. Like, in order for black people to really take that into, we spin black and only black, or what have you, then
get rid of Amazon.
Well, not only that though. It would have to be this. You couldn't have. It would only be a few black businesses that could that would have to scale up. Like, you would only have like one, maybe 2 or 3 black restaurants. You know what I'm saying? And everyone, you know what I'm saying? Like, all the entrepreneurs would pile into those 2 or 3. You know what I mean? Because when you have more competition, that automatically drives prices down. That it drives everything. Efficiencies go down. You know what I mean? It makes no sense. That's why you see, like, in bigger, larger industries, they cannibalize and they eat the smaller ones up and merge them up. It's more efficient that way. That's why, even in the auto industry, right? The cost of capital is so large. Even auto companies are saying, hey, like Honda and GM, like, hey, this R&D that we need to do to keep competitive in the automotive space, we're not paying that by ourselves. You know what I mean? Let's, you and me come together. We have, strategic partnerships, and we break that cost together. You know what I'm saying? But mind you, that's why we only have a few automobile companies. You know what I mean? I mean, it's just, that's, I don't know, man.
The bootstrap, man.
It doesn't make sense, man. It doesn't make not on a real level, not on a real scale. On a small scale, yeah, cool. Of course, you got a bunch of barbershops. Yeah, I mean, it's low margin, easy entry into the industry or into the market. You know what I mean? But their margins are low. It ain't high, ain't super high. You know what I'm saying? But you can survive off of it. A lot of people can do it. You know what I mean? But it just, and that's why. Yeah, I can keep on going. Oh, go ahead, bro.
And then one thing I'll add to that, I had a conversation with one of my best friends years ago. We were sitting around watching this video of a couple guys in Cleveland sitting around playing cards. I got to show y'all this video. It was like really insightful. It was like they wasn't even trying to like make a YouTube channel. They were just like dudes shooting the shit. And there was like, the problem is people don't want to integrate vertically, in the sense that, let me put it this way. Mm-hmm. The black business owners that we know mostly are the people who want to open up business, want to be the front man. They want to be the person who is open to the public, but they don't want to be the warehouser who just gets all the fruit and stuff and holds it for all the other black stores. They don't want to be the distribution person. They don't want to be the guy running just the transport company, in that sense. In terms of what I've
capital, even if we wanted it, Darvell, there's the thing. We don't have the capital for it.
Oh, I know. I'm not saying we don't.
Yeah, those are the most expensive.
You say to the folks who open up all these trucking businesses, there's a lot of people opening up trucking business. Like, every time you look up, the media, just to Ernest's point, is always promoting something that black people are doing that supposedly we could have always done all along, and we just now choosing to do it. You hear about that shit. Like, oh, y'all should have been doing trucking 20 years ago.
Man. I was gonna say the other two I really wanted to touch on too was all of the folks that we interviewed, they're all saying that neither party did us good, or we need to change some of these policies, or these policies have been harming our people. The last guy, he said we need to get laws on the books that can't be changed 5 to 10 years, 20 years from now. And that's kind of where we have failed as a people, is that all the laws that have been put on the books 5 to 10 to 15 years from now, it never meant anything. And that's why we've been in this downward spiral. So it's like, can we get something that sticks, that's specifically for us, and that doesn't have to be compromised by any president or Congress at a later point?
Specificity.
Yeah.
That was a good comment though. But I don't know. I think, well, I mean, look, the question now is, as we pivot out of this to the last question, really, we got to ask ourselves, we don't even have a consistent code or strategy for what we do when going to ballot box. I think that's been clear in the sense that, when we talk about movements move things to the voting box and everybody understands what they need to vote for and why. Here's a good example, Gerard. Take 60 seconds, man. Explain what happened with Prop N.
Yeah, man. So Prop N got passed, and Prop N really wasn't a good solution. It passed 30%, and Prop N basically is putting it on the city, putting on the residents of the city to deal with a problem that was external to itself, right? So all of the housing, blighted housing, pretty much came out of the subprime mortgage crisis, right? And so now, we're going to tear down 6,000 homes out of the 22,000 that the Detroit Land Bank that's basically that's under city control by some way somehow, and then another 6,000 we're just going to do a stopgap measure, not fix them up, but just stop them from deteriorating while we wait for other people to buy them. Even though the city each year previously to have this program, no one is buying these homes and fixing them up at that type of rate. Mind you, the total number of blighted homes are at estimated 50,000. So this doesn't solve the issue at all. But we have now put on the burden to at a tune of $250 million. And after it will be finally, once the debt is retired at 30 years, it will be it'll be a total price of $490 million, and it doesn't fully solve the problem.
Yeah.
But, nonetheless.
Sounds like a good idea.
Yeah. Nonetheless.
I think the key takeaway about that, before we pivot to this last question, is that I thought I had seen personally more productive conversations and publications and discussions and activism around voting against Prop N than I seen for it. So I'm surprised that it passed. I thought it was dead and gone.
I thought
the commercials,
man, but it was
the commercials were compelling, man. They had people standing up talking about, I want a safe place for my community. I want a safe place for my kids to play out. And I feel like that really, you really got to hit people in the kids. And that's really where they vote. If they can believe that what they're doing benefits their children, you can get them to give their children poison. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you just tell them, hey, man, this poison is actually good for your kids, they'll probably take 2 shots.
We are not advocating anti-vaccine. Just to be clear.
Oh no, I'm talking about actual poison. I'm not talking about vaccination. I'm talking about actual. Oh, okay. You probably do need to put that out there. You probably do.
Yeah, dicking around. Okay, all right. So it just shows that I don't know. That made sense. There were people on both sides. Okay, it happened, whatever. But in general, when we talk about going to the booth for national policy, for national recognition of the fact we need to be made whole, we're still way off the rails right now. So when we talk about the next level of it, it deals with the racism, right? So Donald Trump being what he was, what he is, and all the stuff that he inspired in this country over his 4 years, people started to see him as the cause of a lot of things that were happening during his time in office that really still existed before. And again, this is not a promotion or an alleviation of his responsibility, but it really is to remind people that when we went into the booth, we're supposed to be looking for policies, and we're supposed to be looking for candidates that are promoting and doubling down on certain policies that are beneficial to us, not just people who look cool and won't be racist openly. So that's what we asked people as our fourth question, right? We said, listen, Donald Trump is a bad guy. Everyone gets it. I'm on the bus with it. We on the bus with it. Nobody's here to support him. But do you think that voting out that one gentleman is going to make a dramatic difference in the racial caste system, the racist system that undergirds this country that existed well before Trump was even born? And Trump's just a product of it. He's a symptom of it. And nobody wants to talk about the real problem. But we asked it in a very simple way. It wasn't that leading. I apologize.
Wait. So if you want to vote for somebody who's not overtly racist, Joe Biden's not even a good alternative to that, because he said you wasn't black if you didn't vote for him.
I don't understand how people rationalize their way out of that.
Hey, Joe Biden is he got some pretty good stuff on camera. I can say that.
He's gonna say a lot.
Yeah.
You know, again, bro. I mean, that was the you gotta have a boogeyman, man. And people, hey, Trump was Skeletor. He was
for real, man.
Trump was damn
the demon.
Trump was Thanos.
Trump was Thanos, man.
Yeah, he was Thanos. Yeah, Thanos. Or what other bad guy villain that
Hey, Bernie Sanders said Trump was the most racist president we ever had. I'm sitting here like,
Joe Biden said it too.
Well, I'm sitting here like the first.
Woodrow Wilson.
I don't know if this is accurate, but out of the first 16, only 2 of them didn't own people. Like, are you serious, dog? That's my bar. Did you own a person? If you didn't own a person, you automatically better than a whole bunch of presidents.
Oh, wow.
I mean, just off the strength of that.
Off the strength.
So,
all right. So
off the strength that you didn't own nobody, you already is A1 in my book. Okay? George Washington, Thomas Jefferson.
Right.
I don't even know all of them. You know, you get kind of hazy after the first 2.
Listen. Now the water level has moved, right? It's now no longer did you own people, did you purposefully incarcerate people who you actually drove into criminality in the first place?
Mm-hmm.
He fails that too. Hey, look. Did you purposely incarcerate people that you drove into criminality by disproportionately charging and giving time for a substance that your son also used, but he didn't go to jail? He went to rehab and got a $50,000 a year gig, month, not year, $50,000 a month gig. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, that was wild. The whole Hunter Biden. We can touch on that another. But that's That's definitely got to touch on.
Hey, what triviality was that? All he said was, "That's not true."
They had Jack Dorsey, and they was interviewing him. They were saying like, "Why did you censor all of the news medias when they broke the story?" And it was like, "Well, we can't release hacked information." And people like, "But y'all displayed the Snowden, the X, Y, and Z all on the platform."
Trump taxes?
Yeah, Trump.
The P-tape? the Steele dossier? Like, when did y'all start giving a shit about hacked materials or unverified information? Y'all been talking about Russian collusion for 4 years straight. And Jack Dorsey looked like a real weirdo, dog. Yeah. He looked like he got a bath full of baby piss.
Okay.
Let's break it up. Let's break it up to the higher level for the people. I know we know what we're talking about. We're gonna bring it up to a level. All right, so we're gonna hit this 4th round of interviews, y'all. Keep your eyes glued. Listen real carefully to what people say. We asked them, can we vote out racism by voting out the most transparent racist president we ever had? Let's see what they said.
Do you believe that a system, an institution known as racism, can be voted out of office through the vote in 2020?
Well, that's a double jeopardy question. I will say that, unfortunately, Black and brown people, we live in a world where a system was never meant to protect us in the first place. So, unfortunately, we can hope for the best and say, okay, yeah, we want these people out of office. We want to remove these people, but we're dependent on a system that was never meant to protect us in the first place.
I don't think it's possible to vote it out. I think it's possible to mandate certain things in order to eliminate certain aspects of it. But as far as eliminating it completely, I think that is at the core of our nation. And I don't think that we're ever going to get rid of it completely.
Hey, man, I'm going to be honest, man. I feel like my president, I represent him. Even if I was a Democrat, used to be a Democrat, I do support my president because he's not racist. I know it's contrary to popular belief. But if anybody's in that position that's a racist, I don't think they'd be voted for anyway. It'll show before they even get to the run for election. I think, man, it's gonna sound crazy, but I think the Democratic Party is more racist than anything. If you look in the history, they didn't own slaves. Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves. He was a Republican, but all this media is to blame. The media is lying.
Well, Donald Trump's a very good example of that. People have rallied behind him. We just have to make sure that folks like him don't have a seat at the legislative levels in anywhere. And anybody that sides with them and they behave in a way that's not consistent with the values of the community should be gotten rid of.
I expect them to stop perpetrating and precipitating around a whole bunch of good sounding conversation and put some laws on the books that we don't have to look back and worry about 3 years, 5 years, 10 years from now, some other individuals that don't have our betterment at heart to be trying to shoot back up under a Supreme Court or any other court or legislative body to take it back from us.
It's not doable. It isn't doable. It's just not.
Yeah, I think it is. Yes, yeah.
You do believe?
Yeah, I do believe that would help in some type of way. Yeah, yeah. I mean, in some type of way. Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely not. There has to be a change in mindset all across the board. Two people getting voted out is not going to change that. So.
All right, there was a lot. Okay, but I must say I do appreciate the succinct and just like the first guys, like the first and the last interviewees. Yeah, they're pretty clean. But we got to go to my man. We got to go to my man who said my president ain't racist. We got to start there.
Got to. I mean, that's where he had me because I was listening to him the whole time, and I'm recording. I'm like, all right, he know what he gonna stand his ground. He might not know everything, but he's at least standing firm in what he knows. And then when he got to that part with Trump, I'm just like, all right, man. I think you just, you trust. It's some people we got in our culture or in our group that really like. They so hard against being Democrats that they would just go be Republicans and back up everything that they do, regardless of the shit that's right in their face.
I know a few of them, bro.
Yeah, I got a homie just like that. Yeah,
like that, man. Just a few. You know,
I mean, but to the point, going hard against Democrats, he would end on that. He said they like more racist. I don't know if I had that part. I wasn't paying attention again.
Yeah, you did. It was in there.
Yeah,
it was in there.
I mean, this goes back to like our last video. We talked about the history of the Democratic Party, Republican Party. Like, they're nowhere near similar to where they used to be.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, to say that like Lincoln was a Republican, like yes, okay, the Republican Party was started as an abolitionist party. Lincoln wasn't necessarily like pro equality for black people. He was just anti-slavery. So there's still a big difference in that. But I mean, even like when he said, you wouldn't elect a person who was a racist, like you would. Have you seen? We've had 45 of these motherfuckers.
What was it? Steve King, Mitch McConnell, closet racist,
We just listen. We just did that. The 290 guy there.
I'm saying I would even argue that Barack Obama was a racist. You know what I'm saying? Like when you understand what it means to uphold white supremacy, like you can be black and be a white supremacist. Like there's no rule that says you can't do that. You know what I'm saying? So all 45 of them, or soon to be 46, and they're all racist. Like they're all racist. You all have. If you're not racist, they got rid of you. You know what I'm saying? If you're not actually invested in this racial hierarchy, and not saying that the race thing is the end all be all for America, because it's all a distraction. It's all a way to keep us fragmented. But like, nah, dog, all of them. They're all of them.
And that's a comment, like literally, man, that's a common retort. The people who support the Republicans and support Trump. I mean, I have it on my Facebook feed a bunch of times. I'm in the military or was in the military, so I have military friends. The guys I served with that I respect. But politically we're as far apart as you can imagine. And that's one of the the whole thing that Trump did the most for black people. As he's done more for black people other than Lincoln. That's what he.
hey, Trump, you gotta laugh at him. I'm the least racist. I'm the least racist.
So he's done more. I mean, he did more than LBJ. He did more than
right. He wild at that.
More than, you know what I mean? Like, come on, man. Like, serious? Like,
but
they serious about it because they got their marching orders. They know their lines.
Yeah,
that's what you got to give it up to the Republicans, at least for them. That's why they get stuff passed, because they from top down, they push it down, and they people know what to do. They know the talking point. They know what to say. They're very on point with it, no matter they white, black, or nothing. That's why you can have a black Republican say something that he just said. You know what I mean? That the president isn't racist, right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's how you can have that. You know what I mean? Because they stay on point, bro. No doubt about it.
He said a racist can't even get elected though. That was the kind of the wild thing.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm like Steve King. It's a lot of Republican congressmen, Democratic congressmen. You know what I'm saying? They got elected. You know, so
yeah. I mean, again, this isn't a personal shot at anyone who interviewed. This is please remember that what it is just taking a lot of the common opinion that we've seen and heard, not just in person. Tell me something that you guys heard when we were out in Detroit all day that we have not seen already on Twitter, on Facebook.
The one, I mean, when the guy when he was saying his God-given rights, and in that aspect, I was just thinking like he's more of a religious voter. So, you know, if someone was even taking any stance that was limiting someone's religious freedom, I could see him voting for whoever's, you know, opposite of that person based on how he was responding.
Hey, remember George Bush did well with the black evangelicals, man. George Bush went hard, and the Muslims as well, dude. I mean, you know, people come down. That's, you know, people vote like that. They vote on abortion, vote on. You know, a lot of people believe that, you know, this country was a Christian country. You know, a Christian country, you know, that's completely furthest from the truth. But you know, hey, you know, but it's a talking point. You know what I'm saying? It's a talking point that people learn, and you know, they just say, oh, you know, and they just say it over and over again. It goes to that thing with Hitler, or at least it's always subscribed to Hitler, right? That could even be not true, right? But anyways, but you know, you tell a lie enough times, it becomes the truth. You know what I'm saying? You know,
what's the expression? A lie gets around the world before the truth even puts its pants on, whatever. Like, that's an expression.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean,
I never heard that one.
Yeah, a lie gets. Let me see.
I know. I liked. It was one guy. No, back to what you said, Darville. Before you played the clip, you said when Trump and Biden were kids, you know, this nation was already divided. We already had a lot of racism and things like that. That's kind of unparalleled to what we see today. And one of the guys, he kind of hit it on the head in the interview. He said that it's impossible to vote out racism, but in some aspects you can limit it. And that's what the United States has done for these last 150 years. They say, okay, you can sit on the bus, you can go to school with them. You can't get money like us, but you could do all of these other things that limits the truth of racism.
So super physical. Like King said, you know what I mean? You know, the things that they got through didn't cost any money.
That's
right?
what he said.
You know, it didn't cost any money,
Cost money to integrate.
any investment for the most part. When King started talking about getting reparations, getting the investment in, you know, to the same and equal amount as whites, you know, that's when the pushback. When he started, you know, criticizing the government on you know, the war in Vietnam, then he was that nigga preacher by LBJ. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, it's all these different, you know, it's whenever we as Black people specifically say, hey, you know, injustice has been done to us specifically. We need a specific you know, redress or repair. That's when it's everyone's him hauling, and it's like, you know, we can't do this and blah blah blah, and we can't do that, you know, because the foundation. I was my brother from Naeem on Be the Power. He said the foundation of white supremacy is anti-blackness, you know, and it don't matter where it's coming from. That's its roots, you know. But I digress. I'll let you guys, you know, finish that.
It's a quote from Malcolm X that I wanted to. I'm not gonna read the whole thing. It's long. I'm gonna read quite a bit of it, but I'm not gonna read the whole thing. But it really, to me, you know, this idea that you vote out a racist or whatever. Right. I mean, there are a lot of people who really feel like, you know, not so much that you vote out a racist, but like not having a racist president, whatever that means, makes a difference or makes things better or is an improvement or whatever. You know, not having a visibly racist president, again, whatever that means, when you look at Joe Biden's history. Yeah. But so Malcolm X says this. This was, let's see. I don't know what speech it was from. I can't remember. But I'm reading this off of, you can find, if you type Malcolm X Wolf speech, you can find the full speech on YouTube. But he says, the white liberal is the worst enemy to America and the worst enemy to the black man. Let me explain what I mean by white liberal. In America, there's no such thing as a Democrat or a Republican anymore. In America, you have liberals and conservatives. The only people living in the past who think in terms of I'm a Democrat or Republican is the American Negro. This might have been the ballot of the bullet, but I'm hazing. He's the one that runs around bragging about party affiliation. He's the one that sticks to the Democrat or sticks to the Republican. But white people are divided into two groups, liberal and conservative. The Democrats who are conservative vote with the Republicans who are conservative. The Democrats who are liberal vote with the Republicans that are liberal. The white liberals aren't white people who are for independence, who are moral and ethical in their thinking. They are just a faction of white people that are jockeying for power. The same as the white conservatives. So I'm going to go down a bit because this is really where this one speaks to me really in all that I see, especially concerning this election. So then he says the white conservatives aren't friends of the Negro either, but they at least don't try to hide it. They are like wolves. They show their teeth in a snarl that keeps the Negro always aware of where he stands with them. But the white liberals are foxes who also show their teeth to the Negro, but pretend that they are smiling. The white liberals are more dangerous than the conservatives. They lure the Negro, and as the Negro runs from the growling wolf, he flees into the open jaws of the smiling fox. One is the wolf, the other is a fox. No matter what, they'll both eat you.
Yeah,
it's hard.
Yeah, that's real, man. That's
Yeah.
real. That's really the real deal Holyfield.
So,
Gentlemen, we've hit all 4 interviews. So what other points do we need to make sure people understand before we wrap it up tonight, Gerard?
Wanted to just go over, what was the actual results, right? What actually happened, locally, federally, state, and local as far as the elections are concerned. So as we see here, we all know that, President-elect Biden won by a tune of 290 to 214. Let's kind of see where we are with the Senate, though, because that's a huge.
Oh, the Senate. Yeah.
Right. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you want to break down the?
This is Michigan right now. Stephanie,
Right.
can you pull up the Senate thing?
Yeah. Give me 1 second.
Let me show here. Boop, boop, boop.
So this is a breakout of the state right here, and you see the Michigan is a very conservative state.
Right.
I mean, but to this point, land doesn't vote, people do. So while you have the blue areas are concentrations of population centers. So generally speaking, more urban areas vote, in the Democrat, center left than they do center right versus the rural areas. So that's pretty much that picture right here. It is replicated on the national level for as well.
So here's that racial breakdown.
All right, so the racial breakdown. This is what we got here. So the black vote. Well, we'll talk about the black vote. So the black vote broke 89% to Biden, only 9% to Trump. Black male vote was 86 to Biden, 12 to Trump. Now I'm wondering. I've seen some things that said it was even high at 17% the black male vote. But this came out shortly after the election, so it could probably be a little bit off, as far as the polls are concerned, or if you see something variance by different margins of error. Then we have the black woman vote, 92 for Biden, 6% for Donald Trump. I've also seen 8%. So, and in 2012, it was 4% for Donald Trump. So it actually doubled. And so a lot of criticism I've seen thrown at Kamala Harris, one of the things that she was supposed to do was to bring that demographic, right? And the fact that she lost by, she actually lost traction, or let's say the Biden vote lost traction, that ticket, Biden-Harris vote lost traction compared to what was done in 2016. It's quite interesting.
They did. So they lost people. And so there was a thought that some of the votes that were lost were protest votes. People were voting for Trump because they just wanted to protest against the Biden campaign. They didn't want to buy it. You know, I don't know how much I buy. Like, I don't think there's a significant number of protest votes. I think that. Do you think we don't have a clue right now who voted down ballot though? Right?
No,
You
we
see any?
no, I haven't seen that numbers put out yet.
I got the Senate information up.
Okay, let me switch to you,
But
sir.
yeah,
Are you?
I mean that's a really interesting thing for me too. Looking at how the Senate broke down. So I mean, you're waiting for 2 votes in Georgia, which could essentially sway the Senate one way or the other. Either you have a deadlock because you got 46 Democrats right now, 48 Republicans, and then if you have I think 2, it says other party has 2 seats. I know Bernie Sanders is an independent. I don't know who the second non-Democrat senator is, but Bernie Sanders still caucuses with Democrats, so it's still not. It's not like it's not like it's totally
hey,
Democrat free.
Here's another one that's really, really interesting compared, going back to some of the talk about, black girl magic and what black women did. We remember in 2018, Doug Jones ended up winning that special seat that was vacated by the guy who got, what was that senator? He was something
Sessions.
Yeah, right. Was it Sessions? Yeah, Sessions. His seat came up. Yeah, and then Doug Jones won that seat, right? And they accredited to, I remember, black women winning that seat. They talked about the strength of black women, right? Because for some reason, there's this big push to divide, the black women, the black community's vote, and basically suppress black men's involvement. Even though we're the highest, of males, we're the highest demographic or gender to vote for the Democrats compared to all other genders, male genders. Yet and still, there was a lot of blame put on black males as being, maybe the reason why Trump would have won if he had won. Funny enough, Tommy Tuberville, he was the ex coach to
Auburn
coach. He won that seat by a pretty large margin. It says 60% to 39%. What happened to the black women?
Right. And I mean, and that's the thing. Like, even when Doug Jones did manage to win, like he didn't vote. He voted Republicans anyway. Right. And the Democrats said, "Oh, well, he's got to vote for Republicans because he's got to keep his seat." That doesn't work. Either you stand up for the people who put you in office, and you be willing to accept the consequences for having done the right thing for 1 term or for 2 years, however much time you have, or, I mean, we don't have a use for you. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't, and that's what I'm saying. Like, this whole pragmatism thing, it's a curse. Pragmatism is a curse.
Yeah.
Because you have these people like Joe Manchin, right? Joe Manchin, if you got Joe Manchin, you may as well just have like a Republican, because Joe Manchin is like, he sides with Republicans. He was even saying at one point that he wouldn't even vote to convict during the impeachment. And this is, not saying that I care one way or another about impeachment necessarily, but like, he's not even willing to toe the party line for Democrats, just as a rule. Like, I would just stick with the party. And so you have a situation, like I'm saying, why do we need you there? If now the state went Trump, I think, West Virginia, but historically they've been a Democratic state. They're a pro-union state. So, like, what good are you if I'm voting for Senate and I got a choice between a Republican and Joe Manchin? Why do I need Joe Manchin there? At least if the Republican is there, I can have a clearly defined enemy.
You're right.
You know what I'm saying? I can understand, okay, this Republican is trying to do everything terrible to me. Right. But Joe Manchin doing all that same stuff under the blue Democrat flag, like, it just confuses everything.
Right. Yeah. To me, I think it's better, like you said, to have the open wolf and know, and understand that and know how to combat that wolf, than to, be lured to the fox is going to, do exactly the same thing as eat you, maybe in smaller chunks, and smaller pieces may not be as much. I'm just thinking if you got bit by a wolf, versus bit by a fox, right? But nonetheless, it's still damaging. At the end of
So
it.
I grabbed something real quick just to touch on real quickly is the change in voter turnout for Trump. Right. This is grabbed straight from Vox, and this is actually a quote from Matt Brunig, who we know Antonio Moore has worked with in the past on that data that we quoted actually earlier in tonight's show. But what you see here, which is really interesting, you guys touched on a little bit, hinting toward it, is that, this really turned into everybody except white people who, white people continue to undergird, right? But we've seen a growth, and that growth was running from the Democratic campaign. And from the black to the Latino vote and everybody who's other, ain't nowhere else for everybody else to go after seeing Trump that long. Like, people really vote. I mean, only white people were benefiting from this other than the, some of the laws from the immigration standpoint, if people were against immigration.
And I mean that 89%, we're still by and large the most loyal base to the Democrats. And I just went online and looked at like the exit polls for Obama's 2012 and 2008, and we were at in 2008 95% Democrat, and then in 2012 we went to 92%. And so you see it almost looks like a steady decline. We won't know until the next election if that's true or not. But
it'll be worse next election.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, as far as the next steps, I think we really need to start. We got a 4-year. I mean, you got 2 years because the midterms, but you've got a 4-year start now for the next presidential election. So start organizing in your community to get the word out, and it's really up to all of us, to be vigilant about what policies Joe Biden does. You know what I'm saying? What policies he's passing, what actions he's taking, and what he's doing, and going out of our way to let people know, especially when he does the wrong thing, to let people know that this is who they voted for and this is what he's doing, so that you can't live with your head in the sand and think that you got an adult in the White House again, so now you can just go back to brunch, which is, I mean, this is something that you saw a lot of white women had those signs at the women's protest talking about if Hillary was president, I'd be at brunch right now. Like, the work needs to be done. You know what I'm saying? Hillary being president doesn't fix the problem. It doesn't even address the problem. And so, I mean, all of us, especially if we're trying to, create a platform where we speak about politics, we need to make sure that we're letting the people know, that we're letting our community know, our family, our friends know what's going on. What is this guy doing? Who's in his cabinet? Who is his potential cabinet picks? What is their history? What is his electoral history, his legislative history? What is Kamala's record, right? Because she's got a record. And it's up to us all to know who we're up against and what they plan to do.
So,
because...
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. That was it. I mean, it's just, we cannot be in a delusion. We cannot be unaware about, what is being done in our name as American citizens. Who's being bombed to death, who's being tortured in our name.
Those chickens will come home to roost, as Malcolm X said.
Let's wrap it up with a question from the comments to kind of close this out. On YouTube, Marshall 989 asks, what's the next move for Black Americans? In terms of if we're telling people what to do in order to, work with what's coming down the pipeline, what are you going to say in 30 seconds or less, Ernest?
I would say get engaged. So find some Black civic organizations. Definitely, if I had to name a few, I would say check out the ADOS movement. At the same time, also try to arm yourself with data. So, like, if you want to figure out what's going on with our people, look at the information that's out there that's being done by these professionals that gives an accurate description of our conditions and our people. So, going forward, where should Black America go next? We need to start getting more engaged, and at the same time, make sure we avoid getting put back to sleep, because that's kind of what they're aiming for. And if we can keep this energy of trying to revive our political engagement, I think we can make some actual change for our people going forward.
What you say, Gerard?
Man, I'm just going to leave it with this quote. We have no permanent friends. We have no permanent enemies. We only have permanent interests. And so with that, even that's kind of open-ended because what's our permanent interest, right? I think we have to, as an individual, you figure that one thing out. What is it that you feel that's impacting the Black community that really pulls at your heartstring and go and advocate for that particular thing. For me, is reparations. That's my particular thing that I feel that needs to be addressed. So I'm a reparationist. I push in that direction. For you, it might be police reform. It may be, something else, some other particular issue. It might be housing, whatever the case may be. It might be supporting Black business, creating Black businesses, whatever it is. You have to, advocate and push for that particular goal, and really stand up for it and be about it. So that's what I'll leave with.
Stedman.
I would say, you need to try to find alternative news sources. Look online on YouTube. Try to find alternative news sources because mainstream media works in conjunction with the powerful elite, to keep you really unaware, to keep you ignorant of what's going on in the world. And you also organize, try to get involved in local politics. So go to a city council meeting, just on a basic level to figure out what's going on. Look and see who's your representative for your district in Congress, who's your state rep, who's your state senator, who's your city council member, right? And try to get on good terms with some of them as far as speaking terms. Let them know that you're engaged, that you're watching what they do, and that you have been letting people in your community, in your circle, know what's going on. But one thing you do have to do too is be skeptical. Be skeptical of anything anybody tells you, whether it conflicts with what you believe or not, or whether it's congruent with your belief or incongruent. Be skeptical and do your own research. Don't take CNN's word for it. Don't take Fox News' word for it. Don't take MSNBC's word for it. Don't take the New York Times' word for it. Don't take the New York Post or the New York Daily News or the Washington Post or the LA Times or the Detroit News or the Free Press or whoever. Don't take their word for it. Washington Post is owned by Amazon. So you'll never hear a conflicting story against Jeff Bezos or Amazon or none of that ever from the Washington Post. It just won't happen. The New York Times is the paperwork. It's the mouthpiece of the establishment. So don't expect to hear anything that contradicts the establishment while it's relevant. So you might hear them say some bad shit about Obama after he's out of office. Oh, he did this, he did that, he did that. After there's no way to hold him accountable. There's no press pass to lose, no access to compromise. So be mindful of all that. Be critical, be critically thinking, be skeptical. Try to find alternative news sources and get engaged.
All right, so I ended with this. Getting engaged is extremely important, but I think a lot of people need to understand what is the primary focus. What is, if we put things in a hierarchy or a chart of importance with priority, the primary focus is the Black agenda. That really isn't well defined for anyone outside of ADOS101.com. I would definitely tell people to go check that out, read it. But the heartbeat of that agenda, and the only thing that makes that agenda turn into transformative policy that will create the Black businesses you claim that we want to see, the only way that we're going to change these schools into the schools that they should be in terms of the tax base to support them, the only way we're going to be able to deal with the disparity in healthcare outcomes is when we can afford our healthcare and we can mandate where we go because we have the money and the means to do so. And that means that reparations is always going to be the only way to have the transformation that is required for the Black community to have the equity that they are long past due, that they should have, being 14% of the nation's population, yet are only 2% of the wealth holders, less than 2%. We hold less than 2% of the nation's wealth. Never will that be corrected without reparations. So we are in for a litany and a never-ending treasure trove of problems if you, each individual person out there, is not talking to your friends and family, and talking about reparations are due and saying, hey, the next presidential candidate I hear from, I want to hear them talk about reparations or I'm not giving them my vote. That's the only way we're going to push this, just like we did through Adolf on the grand stage during the Democratic primary process. It got there because they were being pushed and there were people who knew it was right, who had enough votes to be on the Democratic stage to have that debate. And that was Marianne Williamson. There were other people who weren't Democrats who supported reparations as well. But as you know, the establishment marginalizes anybody who is not running at least 15% polling from even appearing on TV alongside the other leading candidates. So there's a lot of systems, just as Stedman said, that are working to keep the real information out of your face and out of your ear. And they put what they want you to believe up front. But what you need to believe, and the only way you will ever calculate the Black community's rise is with reparations. So I urge everyone to learn about it, read the articles. We always have stuff on the Freedmen Collective, which is what this podcast is part of. There'll always be stuff on my page, Darvell Powell, on my Facebook and on my YouTube. Please get informed about reparations and please push the line. It is not that far gone. This country has done it many times before, and many other countries around the world have done it. This is America's original sin, and there's no way that America can start to turn the leaf racially unless they deal with the accrued disadvantage that they put on the backs of the people who built this country, which is the Native Black community, which is the American descendants of slavery. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in tonight. We greatly appreciate you tuning in, and we're going to get out of here. Peace, love, all the good stuff, and take care, people, all right?
Peace.